Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning into this special live stream edition of Mikasa Sukasa. Today, we have a very, very special guest. It is my friend, my homie, the one and the only, Ron Placone. What's going on, Ron? How are you doing?
How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Hey, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, man.
Of
I
course.
feel like it's been forever since I've seen you, but it really hasn't been that long. It's only been
It
like a
was,
month.
yeah, it was in October when you made your LA excursion.
Man, was that October? I swore it was
Yeah,
November.
it's been a minute,
Man.
but yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
That was a good time, man. That was a good time. So since then, and during then and since then, you've been going on tour essentially, and you actually have a stop coming up in Miami, right?
That's right. Yeah, Graham Elwood and I do the Progressive Comedy Tour, which is just a stand-up tour with the two of us. And 2019 is shaping up pretty well. We're starting in Florida in January. And January 10th in particular, we got Coral Gables, Florida, which is out by Miami. And you're going to be on that show as well, doing a spot. And
I will be there.
yeah, we're pretty stoked, man. You can go to ronplacone.com for tickets, and that's at the Open Stage Club in Coral Gables on Thursday, January 10th. And grab them now. Like, apparently the front seats are already sold out. Somebody tweeted that to me. So please do grab your tickets early. We're really excited to come to Florida. And if you're in other parts of Florida, we're also going to Gainesville, Orlando, and
Oh wow,
Jacksonville. So
wow, you're gonna be all over Florida. Well,
we're hitting some spots. So
just a word of advice: try to avoid the face-eating zombies. Um, that's the thing. Also alligators, but mostly face-eating zombies. And
I kicked it in Florida for a little bit, man. I'm kind of familiar. I spent a stint of time in Orlando, and I've toured down there a good bit in my road comic days. So yeah, it'll
Orlando's
be
nice, actually. Orlando's kind of like Orlando and Miami generally are kind of like in their own little bubble compared to the rest of Florida, but there is some pretty scary parts of Florida. Like,
sure. Yeah, I mean, there's scary parts of every state, I feel like, but yeah, I mean,
also true.
I liked Orlando as a city more than I expected to, if that makes sense. I knew I was going to go down there for about like 6 weeks or
Pretty
so.
much people think, oh, I'm not going for Disney World, so it's going to not be that fun. That's pretty much how, and then you get there, you're like, oh, wow, this is actually more fun than I thought.
Yeah, like it's got its pockets that are really, really cool. I mean, I guess if I had to give like a gold star to my favorite city in Florida, I'd have to go Gainesville. But
Really?
yeah,
Because of college town?
it's a college town. I'm a big punk rock fan, so Gainesville kind of has that's sort of a special dot to me. And I went to college in Bloomington, Indiana, which is kind of like a similar college town type thing. So I like Gainesville, but yeah, I'm stoked to be there. I'm stoked to be performing everywhere. So.
Well, like I said, man, I've told you before, you, Jimmy, and Steph have a huge fan base here in South Florida from everywhere from Fort Lauderdale to Broward County and in Miami. So I'm sure that there will be plenty of people to be out there. Like I said, people, I will be out there, and I'll probably have a new shirt for you to come out for. And look at and make fun of if you are. I mean, my shirt right now has a fox playing golf because foxes play golf. Clearly,
it's classy, man. You're getting into the country club. Me, not so much with this little goofy T-shirt here.
Man, well, it depends. The country clubs out here are kind of like super bougie. Like I walked into one very recently, actually. I was dressed pretty nice, and they still looked at me like, "What the hell are you doing here?"
Really?
Like, yeah, they're like, that knot in your pocket doesn't look quite thick enough.
What were you doing? Are you a golfer? Like, do you golf?
Hell no. I wish. I can't afford to golf. I would be a great golfer if I could afford it. I could barely afford to go to the driving range, although it's very fun. It's very fun to let some steam off going to the driving range. I had a good time last time.
I'm not a big golfing guy either, man. I don't golf, but
is it a height thing?
No, not my thing.
Oh, okay.
Not my thing.
I was wondering because I thought, like, I know it's kind of hard for short people to golf, right? Isn't it like a thing?
I don't think so. I mean, for me, it's just I kind of feel the same way George Carlin kind of felt about golf or the movie Falling Down, where it's like, oh, we have all this space and we just use it for like a bunch of old rich guys to drive around with a stupid car. And yeah, I think I'd rather see more public parks. And not that I have anything, I mean, there's nothing against some golfing courses here and there. Some people like it. I get it. I'm not trying to shame anybody that enjoys the game of golf. But you know, there's sort of like a classist thing about it that I can't get to.
Not even sort of. Not even sort of. There is absolutely.
There is.
Talk about the ultimate waste of time. You spend 90% of your time driving around and talking about whatever money and lack problems that you have.
I mean, that's the case in this country. I think in other countries, like in Ireland and places like that, it's kind of more for everybody, I think. But in the U.S., there's definitely a pretty big classist thing about it. That's, you know, sort of discouraging.
It's like, I would say that the main difference, other than the lack of physical activity, the main difference between golf and most other sports in this country is like other sports you can actually use as a catapult to get out of whatever financial situation you're in. You know, it's an equal opportunity for everyone. For even short people have an opportunity to play basketball. I don't know if tall people have an opportunity to be jockeys, but that's probably another class of sport. But you get my point. But with golf, it's like, do you have $3,000 for clubs?
Yeah.
Oh, well, sorry, you can't play.
Yeah. So, I'm more of a ping pong guy, man. That's for everybody. They even have paddles available to you. If there's a table, they're gonna have paddles.
Exactly.
It really is for everybody. And a lot of times the tables are free. So
I want to go ahead and get our news on with Ron. See what I did right there?
I like it.
Free promo for you. So as you know, man, well, I don't know if you know, but you should. The Senate just voted to end the war in Yemen. So essentially, according to Time magazine, senators voted Thursday to recommend that the United States end its assistance to Saudi Arabia for the war in Yemen and put the blame for the death of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi squarely on the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and a direct challenge to both the long-term Middle East ally and President Trump's handling of the relationship. That's kind of, I don't really get the last part because it seems like what Tulsi Gabbard said about Trump, that Saudi Arabia is Trump's been Saudi Arabia's bitch. Like,
right.
You know, and the Senate and the House really have been aiding and abetting that. So I don't know why they're pretending like it's a Trump relationship. Isn't it crazy how that works? The moment they don't like Saudi Arabia, he's with Trump. Yeah, we're Trump. That wasn't us.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's another situation where they try to make it out like all of our problems started in January of 2017.
Exactly.
And, I despise Trump as much as the next person. It turns my stomach knowing that he's our president. But I'm also not delusional enough to think that everything started with him or that he's the only problem. He's the result of our system, not the cause of it. So
Absolutely. So I have two questions for you. One, how do you feel about this resolution? Do you feel like there's probably a catch? I mean, I do, but do you feel like overall it's what's best? And two, how do you feel about all of a sudden us caring about how journalists are treated abroad?
Well, I'd like to think that we've always kind of cared about how journalists are treated abroad. How they're treated here, we don't care so much. But I mean, as far as anything that has de-escalation involved, I'm typically for. And by typically, I mean always, especially in Yemen. I mean, we're bombing the poorest people in the world, basically, for no reason. I mean, just for Saudi Arabia, basically, and for resources. So there's no reason at all for it. I applaud. I know Bernie Sanders has really been loud about this, and it's starting to work, which is really, really good to see. And I hope it continues. I hope the pressure continues because, bringing it back to Trump, he ran as a non-interventionist, and he really hasn't been called out for that. I mean, in fact, it's quite the opposite. He's applauded when he bombed Syria. So, I think that when you have these peace resolutions, and I know there's probably a little more to it. There's probably a little bit of what's the word they use, like pork going on.
Pork barrel politics, yeah.
Right. But still, the fact that we're going in that direction, I think overall is a good thing. And hopefully it'll be an opportunity to try to have some peaceful resolutions and to try to be like, hey, you campaigned as a non-interventionist. That's part of the reason people got behind you. Yep. So let's kind of deliver on it. But, we'll see what kind of support that
also, Trump is a liar. So when he campaigned as a non-interventionist, that probably meant I'm going to blow some shit up. That's probably
totally. I mean, and not to like go too far down that rabbit hole, but it's just so delusional to think that this plutocratic billionaire is going to bring down a system that has benefited him his entire life. No, he's part of that system.
Yeah.
He's a cog in that machine. He was just on a different side of it at first. He was on the side buying the politicians. Now he's just one of the politicians. That doesn't need to be bought because he does the buying typically.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean he's going to do anything for you. And so
I mean, he got in office and literally just started helping his friends immediately. That's the first thing he did. This tax bill, for example, helps nobody but rich people. And there are people who have this illusion that it's helped me. And like they're which first of all, I don't even know if they understand what it means for it to help them, because anybody who's getting tax like returns, refunds, they have diminished by a lot.
Yeah. It's diminished and it's going to get worse and worse over time.
And they try to cement those so that the changes are permanent. So it's bad. And then just the idea, like these are the same people like, I'm so tired of the corporate globalist elites, but Trump's okay. it was like, hold on, did I miss something?
Yeah.
Last time I checked, he was a corporate globalist elite. Like he, by every definition of corporate globalist elite, like he has hotels in Moscow, Ireland.
All those categories multiple times and many times over. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea that he is a billionaire, there's no such thing as an innocent billionaire, right? And the idea that he's the one billionaire that cares about us, despite all the proof showing otherwise, is naive and delusional. I just don't. I don't really get that.
There's no such thing as an innocent billionaire until I make my first billion. Then I'll be the first. But.
Right. I always say I would never be able to be a billionaire, even if I was rich. And people, I'm like, because like you're a dickhead. If there are millions of people who are like starving right now, right? You could probably solve world hunger. What? It's like $200 million, something like that. It's not even close to $1 billion to solve world hunger right now. And there are a lot of billionaires.
Yeah, and I don't get a lot of the things that rich people do, to tell you the truth. And I think it's because like maybe it's just because like I can't imagine, but like I don't understand gated communities, for instance. like I don't get like what's the appeal? Like it's like, hey, culture and creativity and everything that makes this country interesting and worth living in. We want to lock all that out and instead put in a tennis court that nobody's going to use. Like why? What's the point?
I lived in a gated community before. Nobody uses the tennis courts.
I don't get it. Like I don't get why people with means do that. Like why? Like, oh yeah, we just want to keep this out, and we kind of live in the middle of nowhere. Nothing's cool going on. Well, you're rich. Why do you live? Well, because I have a big house. So,
and it's just to tell people they have a tennis court in their neighborhood. That's literally like the most exciting part about the tennis court is literally when they tell the people they have the tennis court, and like nobody uses it, but the day that it's dirty, oh my God. There's going to be hell to pay at the next neighborhood meeting if it's the dirty tennis court that nobody uses. I've seen this happen in person.
All right, fair enough. I'll tell you this: if I'm ever a rich man, which I doubt I ever will be, but if by chance something happens and I'm ever a rich man, I would want to have like apartments in like all the cities I like. Not all of them. That'd be impossible. Like I don't know. I'd have to be really, really freaking rich. But like in some of the places I like, I would just want to have an apartment, like in the middle of everything.
Yeah, in the middle of everything, rather
That's
than
just
being
what I want.
gated off.
I'd be like, why would I want to be? I'd rather be able to just be like, I'm going to go to Manhattan for 6.5 weeks and stay at my pad or whatever.
Yeah,
like, I'd want to have that. And then whenever I'm not there, I would like let like different comedians or creative types that maybe could use a little bit of a break. I would let them kind of do a residency where they can kind of stay there for free. And just
that's why you'd never be a billionaire, Ron. That's too much altruism there. Too much altruism.
Well, so, I mean, it'd be a win-win in many ways, though. It's not like because it's like they'd be looking after the place while I'm not there, and then they get to pursue their creative
and ulterior motive. Okay, you're on your way.
Well, no,
it's
just a win-win. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like I'm like,
no,
yeah,
it does.
I mean,
it works out for
would be a way to give back, but it's also like there is a win for me too in this scenario that will probably never ever come to ever in a million years.
So I have a question for you. There's a little bit of some inconsistencies, right? Because we know how Julian Assange is being treated right now, and there's a good possibility that his life, well, not a good possibility, it's true. His life is in danger in the situation that he's in right now. And not only have we ignored it, but according to what the news that's been released, and according to the sources close to him, they're trying to prosecute this man.
Yeah, and no one's
doing anything wrong.
Huh?
And he didn't do anything wrong. There's
No.
literally nothing that they could point to that he did something wrong, say he did something wrong. But yet, this journalist, they blew it up. He's dead, and and Saudi Arabia is responsible, and like, but where was that concern at when we're the ones essentially holding a journalist responsible for he didn't do anything wrong?
Julian Assange is the ultimate scapegoat right now, and that's been going on since the election. And it is absolutely repulsive seeing people that identify as, quote, progressive, celebrating Julian Assange's ill health.
Yeah.
And what is he guilty of? He exposed corruption, but it happened to be at the candidate you liked.
Exactly.
Everybody was celebrating him when he was exposing Bush's crimes.
Mm-hmm. Man, you should go back and read some of those articles.
As they should have been. I mean, I was too. But just because he tells the truth about someone you don't want him to tell the truth about, that doesn't mean he's a demon now. And it's unbelievable to me the way people are acting towards him. I mean, this is a modern day lynch mob. And it's so grossly misdirected. And the irony of all of it is these are the same establishment people that come down on Trump for being against a free press because he's rude to journalists, which he is, and it's painful to watch him. It's also painful to watch a spineless corporate media not actually ask him questions, and when he says turn your camera off, they say yes, sir, please don't deny me access. That's even more painful, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially as a journalist. Yeah,
I mean, every journalist that was in that room should have lost their job that day. That's what should have happened. When the White House said turn your cameras off, and they said yes, sir. Every one of them should have been unemployed later that day. Every single one. But instead, we actually celebrated them. They were being bullied. If one of you turned your camera on, what would they have done?
What was so bad about it? It wasn't like unique to just the left. Like the CNNs and MSNBCs didn't just do it. It was like Fox News. Yeah. Everybody did it. The right, the left. It's like, you all are pansies. Like,
it was pathetic. Well, it's just yellow journalism. It's just all about access, and it's just, all of our, quote, news outlet, like, they're not cable news. It's just not news. Like, that's just not definitionally what it is. It's PR on behest of who owns them. It's PR on behest.
Speaking about PR and behest of who owns them, did you see this Josh Fox tweet?
Which one? If you're referring to the one,
I took a picture of it. I'll let you know right now. There were a couple of them that were like, what?
I saw the one where he went after the Green Party again.
Yeah.
Where he said something like, I'll never support them for president. They should have dropped out of swing states.
Yeah.
And, when I see stuff like that from him, I'm just disappointed. Like, I wanted to respond, and then I was just like, why? Because I responded to one of his in the past, and I basically said, Josh, what are you doing? Like, I watched Gasland, and that part of the reason I couldn't vote for Hillary Clinton was because she's promoted fracking all around the world. And just like you, Josh, I'm from Pennsylvania. Yeah. And what's funny, man?
That's what's so weird, right? He's like, I voted for he should have like, she actually was like pushing back against activists against fracking.
Yeah.
You made a movie about fracking. I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't get it either. And I mean, I don't understand. Like, the funny part too, is that, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally, and there is a drilling ban in my parents' community. The reason there's a drilling ban is because at one point they had a very progressive mayor, who sadly is no longer with us. He was a friend of mine and a friend of my family's, and he got a drilling ban through. He acted locally. He got elected mayor, and he got a drilling ban through. Meanwhile, the kind of more establishment Democrats, even at the local and state level, wanted more drilling to happen. They wanted to open the city up to drilling, and they lost because of grassroots activists. So it's weird. The people that Josh Fox is demonizing in that tweet are the people that actually kept drilling out of my hometown, and the people that he's celebrating are the people that wanted to have it. Yeah. And this is a guy that made an anti-fracking movie.
He said that the Green Party was co-opting the anti-fracking movement. That was what was I'm like, hold on. The Green Party was like literally the only political party at the time when it was created that had an entire environment. Environment. That's it. We don't care about anything else. At that point, it was literally, we don't care about anything else but the environment. And he's like, you all co-opted my movement.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
because you wouldn't vote for the president who was totally against my movement.
Yeah. No, I mean I don't get it either, man. And it just bums me out because I only saw the first Gasland and I really liked it. So,
Yeah, he
it
was.
just bums me out when you see stuff like that. When you see creative people that are doing important things that I think are kind of, and I consider those kind of people when you're a creative that's contributing in that way. I kind of feel like you're an outsider in many ways. So to them, see somebody like him do insider type things. And I've heard people speculate he might be considering running for office. I have no idea. I don't know the guy. I've never met him even.
I hope he's not. I've met him. He's not really all that politically astute. Clearly, he doesn't even know his very brief political history. So I wouldn't recommend it, guy, because that was probably like he, according to his own words on Twitter, he lost 100 followers in like minutes.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, I didn't really get that tweet either. And yeah, stuff like that, it just bumps me out to see. It's like, why do you feel like that was a productive thing to say?
I don't get it. I really don't. It wasn't productive. That's what was weird about it. It literally was. There was what positive could have came from that.
I guess maybe those are 100 followers he didn't want anymore. I don't know. Maybe maybe he thought they were bots. I don't know. I don't.
And it's really goes to show, in my opinion, there's a certain, when you're on a creative side of things, there's a way to go about business where you can still push what you'd like to see happen and stay the hell, which is important in my opinion, to stay the hell out of things like this.
Well, I think that's not only something you can do. I think that's something you need to do for your own sanity. I mean, I talk about electoral politics because, I work on the Jimmy Dore show. I do get your news on with Ron. People tweet me stuff like that. And that's fine. I mean, it's worth talking about. But I also really like to focus on causes. I'm trying to get municipal internet in my community. And we're finally starting to pave a little ground on that. And we're going to try to rally, the city again. So, I think stuff like that. And then when you see these people like here in LA, we got a guy named Mel Telkarabne that's really doing so much stuff for homelessness.
Oh yeah, I know that.
When you see stuff like that, it just sort of gives you a little bit of optimism that, hey, we can still do something to make our community a better place. And when you have a corrupt system that's failing the people miserably, that's one of the only things to take solace in. What Gail McLaughlin did in Richmond, California, we can duplicate that all over the freaking country if we work hard enough.
And we need to cheer anybody and everybody.
We don't need to cheer anybody. Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm saying like who was pushing those type of initiatives, like the Republican guy who was 100%. They got 100% renewable energy in Texas, in a city in Texas. Like, I don't care if he's Republican. They have 100% renewable energy in that city.
Yeah. There are no sacred cows. Like, stand by a cause, and there aren't, and you don't need to cheerlead one side or the other because there's nothing worth cheerleading. You know why? Because it's not a real sporting event. It's the Harlem Globetrotters. Yeah, it's the Washington Generals and the Harlem Globetrotters. You don't need to cheer for it because it's not worth cheering for. What you should be doing is calling out that it's a fake freaking game.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. It doesn't matter how many tricks and behind the back layups they do to wow you. It's still a fake freaking game because they're letting you do it. They're letting them get away with those plays.
And quite frankly, their layups are pretty weak, honestly. I mean, if you saw that roundtable with Schumer and Pelosi and Trump, and,
God,
and the sleeping Mike Pence, it's pretty weak sauce.
It was. I'm watching this shit. I'm like, does anybody believe this? This is the worst acting that I have ever seen.
I was like, who's celebrating this anywhere? How is anybody? I mean, I guess unless you're like the utmost Trump supporter, like that's the only group that had anything, because he looked stronger than them.
I'll shut this down. And it's like the Democrats have formed this habit of like being bullied. Is like, look at us, we're being bullied. That means we're trying to do something positive for the world. Like,
no, you're not. Stand up. Bring up the fact that why isn't Mexico paying for it? Bring up the fact that most of the public opinion is against this. Something I pointed out on Get Your News On with Ron, the Democratic establishment loves to remind us that Donald Trump didn't win the popular vote. Whenever they're smearing progressives, they love to bring up that point that Donald Trump didn't win the popular vote. Whenever it comes to Trump's policies, though, they never bring that up. They never bring that up. When it comes to, Donald Trump, most people don't want this freaking wall. You didn't even win the popular vote. 27% of this country, at best, wants your stupid wall. We don't even know how much it's going to cost. You promised Mexico was going to pay for it. That's out the window now. You ain't getting a dime from us.
There's an awkward conversation that nobody wants to have. Like, bro, they can just swim to Florida. Like, I'm just saying, like that.
It's a waste. It's a waste. It's a waste idea. It's so insanely stupid.
Not even going to deal with the undocumented situation because most of the undocumented citizens come through visa.
Yeah, and we have a net zero. It's a bunch of nonsense. And, you know, so just the fact that the Democrats were willing to fork out a dime, it's already a loss.
But of course, Ron, we have to, like, we can't afford Medicare for all because this wall is absolutely necessary. How else are we going to get people to train in pole vaulting, like, and recruit them into our Olympic team for Mexico?
I mean, think of all the other things we could do just with that $1.3 billion that they promised him, that the Democrats promised Trump. $1.3 billion.
That's so much.
$1.3 billion. We live in a country where 44% of homeless people have jobs. Most people can't afford $1,000 emergency. You know, people are underemployed, grossly underemployed, and that's not factored into the unemployment statistic.
Never.
Meanwhile, $1.3 billion for this,
and that didn't start with Trump, by the way. That didn't start with Trump.
No, absolutely not.
He did exacerbate the shit. He exacerbated the hell out of it.
Yes, he did, but it certainly did not start with him. It's been going on a long, long time.
So, just moving on. Speaking of fraud and fraudulent, the DNC fraud lawsuit hearing, the oral arguments for our appeal happened on Tuesday. There hasn't been a decision reached yet, but essentially, I would like to know what your opinion is about the DNC fraud lawsuit in general. What do you feel like means to the progressive community, or if it means anything at all? And where would you like to see? What's the most exciting possibilities that you'd like to see coming from the lawsuit?
Well, I think that the best thing that's happened so far is that they really got the DNC to admit on tape that they're just a corrupt organization that doesn't really care about a fair process. Like they literally just said it. And it bummed me out that didn't go viral completely. Yeah. You know, the way I always like to look at it, like going big picture.
Oh, you know, pause. Hold that thought. The lawyer was very upset about that, by the way.
Upset
he was
what?
About that quote, his quote going viral. He mentioned it in the oral arguments. He was like, this was fomented by the councils that I said that the DNC can cheat if they want to. I never said that. And we're like, no, you literally said that. You literally said that.
It's on record. Nice try, buddy. But yeah, it's on record.
Go ahead, man.
But I always, you know, you and I are around the same age. And, you know, I feel like our generation, like millennials and younger, and then some Gen Xers as well, we, you know, at least speaking for me, I never really felt like I was part of the Democratic Party. You know, I basically got my political alignment because I wondered why the fuck we were in Iraq. And then I looked into the media reform movement. I read Noam Chomsky, and I was off to the races. And, you know, I've always been a very progressive guy since then. I learned really quickly that my views aren't really represented on the ballot. But I kind of thought, well, the Democrats are a clearer glass than the Republicans, and it's a more incremental way to kind of live in the type of country I want to live in. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and then I had some experiences that kind of back that up, because my congressman in Seattle was Jim McDermott, who was a great progressive, one of the good apples. I mean, he's done stuff for depleted uranium. He's pushed for single payer his entire career. He's a good dude. And that was my congressman. What I didn't realize at the time, because I was young, was that he is the exception. He's not the standard. He's the exception. And he has to spend his entire political career fighting the establishment. Yeah. I didn't realize that. I thought they kind of were just, they gave him a platform, and the more incremental people were just kind of security to make sure he has a place. It's the opposite. They don't want him there. I didn't realize that at the time. So
not only do they not want him, they want him out. It's not just like a casual. Well, we don't want you.
Look at Dennis Kucinich. Look at how they inevitably just kept screwing him over up until the end. Dennis Kucinich. You know, so basically what happened with this lawsuit, what happened just in the primary in general, for people like me, and I know I'm not alone, all of our worst suspicions were just confirmed.
Yeah.
And now,
and then some.
And then some. So now it's like, well, what do we do about this? And, you know, we're faced with two choices. Either A, we start a brand new party, or B, we try to hijack the Democratic Party from within and gut it. And
I feel like there's a C. I feel like there's a C.
Which
is both, and what you were just speaking about earlier, which is we push initiatives that will eventually lead to things like electoral reform that will force the Democratic Party to capitulate, because if they don't do what they're supposed to, hopefully initiatives and rank towards voting will allow us to vote for someone who will.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, and I think that is a noble C. And I guess if I had to pick a camp for myself, I would fall in C, because I don't, you know, as far as electoral politics goes, if you're a progressive and I like what you stand for, I don't care what's next to your name, I'm going to vote for you. You know, I have voted for peace and freedoms. I've voted for Greens. I've voted for people that were Dem entering. Hell, if I lived in Sam Ronan's district, he tried to infiltrate the Republicans, I would have voted for him. Yeah. So, you know, but as far as doing something in your backyard, that's something where I feel like I have an effect. I can do something. And yeah, you have power in that. You know, I talked about municipal internet earlier. There's a little town in Massachusetts that just sent Comcast packing. Because they said, screw you, Comcast. We're building our own internet.
Massachusetts.
You know it's a worthwhile investment.
Massachusetts is one of those states that people don't know is like, that's the most, they're so progressive, their Republicans are progressive. That's what like the saying is in Massachusetts.
A little bit, yeah.
I stood in front of a bunch of millionaires and CEOs, and half of them were Republican, and we were advocating for to do prison reform, essentially to keep people out of jail. And the sheriff was in charge of this initiative. The guy, he was like, yeah, I'm just trying to get put out of a job because I don't want to see people in jail. And by the end of it, all the CEOs were like, well, this is a no-brainer. Yeah, we'll hire people to keep them off the street because that's why people are on the street. And I'm like, they're like, this is common sense. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's common sense, but you don't usually hear people admit to that. That's not what CEOs do. They demonize the people in jail. They don't hire them. And I'm talking about like, they brought them on to be management eventually. One dude
cool,
is,
man.
Yeah. And these, like I said, half of these dudes are Republican. These are old white dudes. And they're like, well, this is common sense stuff.
Well, sadly, you and I couldn't handle the Massachusetts winters. I mean, you know, you live in Florida, I live in California. So,
I could not. That's why I refuse.
It's not an option for either of us. I mean, I have to kind of think about it, though, man, because my fiance is from Cape Cod originally. She grew up in Aceham, Mass. So, you know, there's always that thing like, oh, would we ever head up there at some point?
And you're like, we can head up there as long as we head right back.
Yeah. It would have to be one of those like, oh, we got a place like again, if I'm ever rich, Boston would be one of the places.
Yeah, Boston is nice. Cambridge is cool, man. Is gorgeous.
Best lobster. Well, it wasn't a lobster roll. They're quick to correct you at this place. It's a lobster sandwich because they actually use 2 pieces of sourdough toast. But best lobster sandwich I've ever had in my life, alive and kicking in Cambridge. Man, I'm thinking about. I'm tasting it right now. This was years ago. This was like 2014.
Well, you know, I'm allergic to seafood, but I'm also skeptical of anything that comes from the sea at this point because we like kind of destroying our entire, you know, ecosystem. So,
all right. Well, it was a fuck of a lobster sandwich. You can be
it was worth it. It was worth it.
we only live once anyway, so I'll take my chances with how good this freaking lobster roll was. But lobster sandwich.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on once again. Let everybody know where you're going to be at in January here in Miami.
So Miami, it's Coral Gables, Florida at the Open Stage Club, January 10th, 8 p.m. You can get tickets at romplacone.com. Niko's going to be doing a spot. So you're going to see Niko. You're going to see me. You're going to see Graham Elwood. It is going to be a fun time, man. I hope you're looking forward to it. We're going to have a really fun show. Absolutely. And for all other dates, romplacone.com. I'm coming to other spots in Florida if you're not in Miami. Coming to New Orleans, coming to Texas, coming to Utah, coming to Idaho. Tickets at romplacone.com. We're starting to book more dates in 2019. We're already to the second half as far as booking goes. So East Coast, we're coming. Colorado, we're coming. Midwest, we're coming. And we might be coming to Europe. So, yeah, a lot to look forward to.
You hear how he named all the states that smoke weed by name? You hear how he did that? Colorado, we're coming. Wink, wink. Be ready.
I said Texas. They don't have that.
Oh, yeah. You did say Texas. Okay.
You know what's funny, man? Because it's legal here in California, whenever I do go on tour and I'm in a place where it's not legal, like I get confused for like a split second. Like after a show in North Carolina, someone was like, "Hey, Ron, will you smoke weed with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And I was just standing there waiting, like in the middle of the venue. I was like, "All right,
all right, pull it out."
We're ready. Yeah, and then the guy goes, "Well, do you want to go to the parking lot?" And I was like, "Dude, I'm not having sex with you. Well, what are you talking about?" And then I remember I was like, "Oh wait, it's not legal."
Yeah, well, man, look, it's weird. We're like Florida's kind of like DC in the sense where it's like that weird gray area, which I think some people prefer.
Pretty much there at this point. Like it's a kind of a weird gray area.
Yeah, even California to a degree. To some, like when it comes to like edibles, I heard about y'all weird edible laws. Like I heard people were like about to die because people weren't like regulating the amount of THC they were putting in the edibles. Really? Yeah,
I'm not a big edible guy, so I guess I didn't. You know, it's not really. Man, I'm old-fashioned in that way.
Oh Lord,
I'm a very old-fashioned man. I don't like edibles much. I've never had a great experience.
Back in my day, we never had edible. That's that newfangled millennial stuff. Those young millennials, those old millennials, we just smoke it out of a joint. You smoke it out of a doobie. And you
put in pot and
you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and hope you don't fall over. Thanks for coming on, man. I greatly appreciate it. Remember, people, January 10th, right?
Yep.
January 10th, Coral Gables.
RonPlacone.com for tickets and all other Ron Placone stuff. Get your News On with Ron over on YouTube. Yeah.
And I will be there making a funny probably.
I'm stoked, man. We're stoked to have you.
It's going to be exciting. I'm excited. I'm already halfway. I'm like most of the way done with my stand-up. You know what I'm saying? It'll be a quick 1-2 punch. 1-2 punch.
Good, man. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. And everybody else, always remember more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.